Let's see, Mr. Joyce is here. Ms. Martinez. Hi. Mr. Doughton. Did I pronounce that right? Okay. Madison Dillon. Hi. I'm here. Mr. Unimeyer's not here. Rick Lopez, he's not here. And it looks like we have a quorum. So I guess we can proceed. New business. Welcome. We need to review the minutes from July 9th. You should have a copy of them in front of you. It is, oh yeah, 10:10. And we're going to review the minutes from July 9th. You should have a copy in front of you. If anybody has any suggestions, changes, input that needs to be added to the written version, let us know. I suggest that we strike the word possible in item 3.3 because we already have a business council, but we did talk about it during the last meeting. So it's not just a possible council. We do have a business council. Does anybody have anything else? No? Then I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes with that one change. Somebody needs to make a motion. Okay. Motions. Who's making the motion? You're making the motion? I need a second.
I second.
Second, okay. Ms. Martinez made the motion and Ms. Dillon made the second. We have open discussion. We have any comment from anyone in the public who's with us today? Oh, yeah, sorry. I forgot to get a vote. We got a motion in a second. I got all excited this morning. It must be the coffee. So all in favor of approving the minutes with that one change, raise your right hand. Good. It's a unanimous approval. And now we're up to the open discussion. Comments from the public and open suggestions for possible plans or projects. Anybody have anything? Nope. Then we have a discussion on the city's code enforcement office from Mr. Meyer. Mr. Meyer. And let me suggest that you pull the microphone down where you can get close to it.
Is that because I'm short?
Not quite kiss, but almost, because otherwise I can't hear you.
Yes, sir.
I guess I should do the same, huh?
Yes, sir. Good morning. How are you, sir? Sir, I've been here about 9 months now. Still learning the ropes pretty much because every city's codes are different. I'd say the best thing that you got going for you, the latest thing was the ICC adoption. That opens up a whole new world for me to get people on violations. I mean, I try and look the other way when it comes to people working out in their yards and stuff like that, because it's normal stuff. But if it goes on for a day or two, you know, that's when I start getting involved. So far, sir, I've been having a great time. I think everybody likes me so far. I've been able to calm a lot of fires, put out a lot of things, get a lot of violations cleared up. And that's what I'm here for. That's my primary goal.
So do I understand your reception from citizens has been pretty good generally?
Absolutely, sir. I try and be understandable. You know, you're trying to tell a person what they can and can't do with their own property. It's very personal. So you have to be personal yourself and understand their plight, their circumstances, stuff like that. But don't push me, you know.
Well, I think that's good. I don't think we really want to be in opposition to the citizens. We'd like to be in cooperation with them to keep the city looking good and keep things
Yes, sir.
safe.
And I'll try and
have
keep this
people
place clean.
get their permits and all of that sort of thing
Yes, sir.
as needed.
That happens a lot. Although the word is spreading out there, my amount of violations that I actually identify have decreased significantly because of the fact they know I'm out there. I'm not letting up though.
Do you have any suggestions for us?
At this point, no, sir. I mean, I know Louis has a lot of suggestions, recommendations as far as certain laws are concerned, but that comes with his experience, and he'd be better off telling you about that than I would. But as far as the laws are concerned, there's primarily nothing I can't enforce at this point.
Ron, what do our ordinances and codes say about maintaining yards? I don't want to put you on the spot, but I mean, I looked up the code this morning and it sounds like it defers to an international maintenance code or something like that.
Yes, sir. International Property Maintenance Code.
Okay.
There's so many different codes that I can apply to certain circumstances, Jack. Usually it's 26-117 and it's the height of the grass. If it just looks bad, I'm going to stop in and I'm going to try and make contact with the property owner and let them know this is not right. This, whatever does not belong outside, you have to get rid of. Whatever is over 12 inches tall, cut it. Just make it look presentable for everyone else.
Right, right. Are there laws specific to how well your house has to be painted? If paint is peeling?
Yes, sir. And once again, I try and give discretion. It depends on where the house is at, what the circumstances might be with the homeowner, their age, their finances. There's so many different things that come into play. But as far as paint is concerned, the ICC code, yes, sir. And I've gotten several individuals on it so far. Priscilla before me, she got a few people. So yes, sir.
I think ultimately we want to work with residents, and sometimes I get that codes, get complaints that code's not doing enough or code is doing way too much and they've come down on me. So it's trying to find that medium ground. We sent out a publication months ago to try to educate property owners about some of the basic code compliance issues. I think that was pretty effective. But between myself, Mr. Myers or Mr. Zamarone, anybody who's involved in code compliance related to the city, that we're trying to be fair and give residents the adequate time they need to comply. But at some point we will have to take and go through that due diligence through the court at some point, if necessary, through Mr. Myers.
Okay. Ron, are there any areas of the city that have more issues than others?
South side.
South side.
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially around Jackson Keller.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But I'm
Do we
cool with
have
that.
any particular one individual that you would think of that has trashed or junkyarded their property?
There's so many that there have been so many.
There's several of them.
Well, to this point, I've cleaned up so much, I couldn't really tell you exactly. There's a couple that come to mind and I'm working hard on them. The city prosecutor is working with me to try and get these things cleared up. There are several, but usually, strangely enough, they're usually in the middle of the block. Almost always the middle of the block. It's weird, but I'm working it. You got my word on that.
Can you give us an idea of what you did before you became our compliance officer? Have you done that before in some other city?
Well, telling by my age, sir, it looks like I've been around the block a few times, but yes, sir. I worked with the city of San Antonio for a long time, about 6 years, 7 years, city historic preservation office. So I was their unique code officer. I had 20 different districts, primarily all over the city, and I was just one man. So I managed that for about five and a half years. And then I had a little bit of a problem. I went to California for a little bit, worked with the Sonoma County Sheriff's Department for a little bit, Napa Valley. There are too many people out there and not enough money, so I came back to Texas, went to work for TxDOT, worked for them for about 3 years. Different kind of animal, completely different than what I'm used to. That didn't work out, so I'm here. And I'm planning on retiring or dying here, sir.
Anybody else have any questions, comments?
Ron, what was it? You said that the ICC,
Yes, sir.
what does that stand for?
International Code Council.
International Code Council.
Yes,
Thanks.
sir.
So Ron, thank you for the report.
Yes, sir.
And actually, I'm heartened by it. I was a little worried, having heard some complaints from citizens, that there'd be a long list of things that need to be adjusted, but it sounds like you're working with folks, which is a really great approach,
Yes,
I
sir.
think, and just trying to keep the heat on without
You know
getting
it.
them irritated. That's a great approach.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. I do have one request though, if I may, and that's very, almost kind of a personal thing on my corner,
Sure.
is that there's a fella that has a shrub literally right on the corner. And if
Okay.
you come up to that corner, you can't see oncoming traffic.
So visual obstruction.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So if you don't mind kind of putting that on the top of your, as you continue your rounds. to
I've
keep
already
an eye on
told
that
him a
sort of
couple of
stuff.
times, sir. I've already addressed it. So,
Oh.
but I have to give him the amount of time to comply,
I see.
which is minimum 10 days. He's on his second 10 days. So I'm trying to be nice. You know,
Okay.
I'm really trying to do the right thing. I understand,
Yeah.
but the law is the law. So,
And I think that gets lost a little bit because Ron is proactive, and that's the reason why partly we have code enforcement is for proactiveness. But we have to allow residents to do their due diligence. You know, I've gotten complaints directly, you know, cars parking on the yard and tell them to move it. Well, you know, we give the notice, Mr. Myers gives a notice, but they have a certain time to comply, just like any other code compliance issue. And so if they don't, then that starts the due diligence process working its way to court. But there is that time period that some residents don't understand, that we have to allow residents to comply in any course of any type of notice given to any property owner. Correct, Mr. Myers?
yes, sir. And that really helps me out if it ever gets to court, because you show the judge, hey, I gave him this much time. Then I gave him this much time. Then I gave him this much time. I can't give him
Right.
any more time.
Yeah. Okay, good. That sounds great. I do have one more comment. And it has to do with the South Side parking.
Okay.
I've talked to a lot of folks there, and of course, due to the high school down there, they used to park all over Antler and all of those streets there on the south side. So we put in an ordinance that says no parking.
Yes, sir.
And so what I've heard from some of those residents is that they would prefer it if there was some, I don't know if there's a way to do it. It may not be possible, but if there were a way to be flexible so that the grass guy could come and park in front of their house for an hour or so and take care of the grass.
I try and give, because I'm driving down that street almost every day, every couple
Yeah.
of hours I pass by, and I see them out there working. And because of the width of the street, it really limits them to do their work. And I try and look the other way, but don't park facing the other direction. Don't leave things out in the middle of the street. You know, get your job done as quickly as possible and get out.
Yeah.
So we when we had that issue a couple of years ago, that's as a result of Lee improving I think their parking lot for either the students or faculty at the time. We since then gave residents these yellow guest passes that they can hang in their car for a guest or anybody. But PD is the one that's going to give the ticket if you're parking in the street during those times. I've talked to Louis about some process about going back and revisiting that and to see if they're even necessary right now. So at some point, if we do, we'll have to bring that back to council to basically amend and or not enforce it because it was done by ordinance.
Right, and that's a great point, Ryan. I appreciate that comment, because it seemed like, you know, the pendulum kind of swung a little bit too far in that direction. Maybe there should be an exception for visitors, guests, the yard guy, you know, all that sort of stuff that you guys are grappling with now with your passes. Maybe if the ordinance were looked at and granted exceptions, that I don't know if that make it easier or harder, but it might not be a bad idea to look at that.
Well, again, I think initially when I talked to I believe the principal and staff at Lee, it was an issue. And again, I think it's a matter of just revisiting and talking to them to see if it still is. I haven't seen it as an issue lately or heard that it is an issue with students there.
It's
Yes, ma'am.
because they finished that.
Yeah, that's what I
construction.
figured.
So
and-
there's more, and I think too, because my son is at Lee, we get pretty good emails about don't park in, on the street, you have to buy your parking permit. This is where you can park. So I think that he's been more vocal about that too. And I've wondered, like, how has it affected the streets? I feel like I don't see as many
Yeah.
kids in the street either, but I mean, I'm not there all the time, just when I'm dropping
Yeah.
off and picking up. So
Mr. Joyce, on the line, I have Mayor Trevino. He was on the line to speak about the commons when we get to that, the playground and everything like that. But I think, Mayor, you have some comments on this?
Yes, sir. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being there. I apologize I couldn't be there with you. I heard the comments regarding parking, and I just wanted to propose something that is done in downtown San Antonio and see what y'all thought about it. But in the Lavaca district, which is just south of Hemisphere area, Tower of the Americas, they have placards that you hang from the visor, and they're numbered so that each resident has 2 or 3, whatever y'all agree upon. But that way you can't duplicate them. Each, that the house has 1, 2, 3, and then the next house has 4 through 6. But I think to Mr. Joyce's point, that would allow the repairman to go in the house, get a placard and put it on, and incumbent on them to return it once they finished. Just wanted to put that on y'all's radar.
And we've allowed that. We've given out a number of those yellow guest passes, and they say CH parking passes. They're bright yellow. And we've actually given to residents like on Cotillion. They've come in and picked up 3 or 4 to use when they've had events during the day at their house for some reason. But that's something we can look into.
Good. Thank you, Mayor, for your comments, and Ryan as well. Appreciate it.
Anything else? Any other comments, suggestions, ideas? No? Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you, Mr. Meyer, for being
you,
with
sir.
us this morning. I appreciate your time and your contribution.
Thank you very much, sir. Have a good weekend.
Okay. We are down to discussion of shade structure and commons as part of the Commons Master Plan. And we should identify funding options.
So
And Mr. Rapley has just handed out a little diagram of the City Hall and Fire Department and Commons with an indication of where a shade might be situated along the trees on the northwest side of the Commons.
yes, sir. And obviously this is just basic, just to show an idea where a shade structure, where a playground, and then potential costs. And, our goal last meeting was to have a little bit better full-blown site map showing sort of where shade structures may be able to go and all this. And we've had, between our engineers and myself being out of the office with me with COVID and him having a medical emergency, our engineer. So they've kind of come up with this, but I think between now and the next meeting, they're going to sit down and put together a better layout and an idea, which is full site plan showing. And right now, this is just saying, here's particular shade structure. And I actually had a rendering, and I'm not sure why it didn't print out. It was a rendering showing an idea of a shade structure that had lights and fans on it that ran, and it was kind of open air, one of those shade structure, kind of like right here, and a price. I'm not sure why it didn't print out here. I did see it, send it to Mr. Joyce at one point to take a look at, but that would be an idea because you could still actually get booths underneath for Fiesta events. And it did provide that. This is some of the price right now. I mean, that they've just kind of probable cost. What I could tell you is last night I submitted the proposed budget. We'll talk about it on Tuesday night with City Council. And I layered in funds for this project out of the ARPA, the American Rescue Plan, to potentially look at start getting a playground and or potential shade structures sooner than later there. But this is very preliminary, and the idea is that they're going to come back next meeting with a presentation that kind of lays everything out. At that point, I'm going to let the mayor kind of jump in because he has some ideas and he's been working on the fundraising for the playground. Go ahead, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Rapley. So one of the things that I try to be mindful of having a little bit of a small business mentality is the value. And truth be told, I'm not a huge fan of the shade structure, the fabric shade structures, because they sag over time, they age, they discolor, and ultimately need to be replaced. So in my mind, I was trying to figure out how we could make an investment that would continue to pay dividends. And one of the things that I saw was solar panel shade structures. In my mind, if we could install solar panel shade structures in the commons to offset our utility bills in City Hall, the fire department, police department, public works, wherever it is, that would be very sustainable in a couple of ways. It provides shade. It would help us offset our utility bills, which right now, as everybody has seen, utility bills are going up. But I believe we would pay anywhere from $6,000 to $8,000 a month to CPS. So if we could get that to return back, we could potentially earmark a portion of those funds to go towards continual park improvement or commons improvements, I should say. But that was just one of the ideas that I came up with that, in my mind, provides a better bang for the buck than just a fabric shade structure. The last thing that I want to mention is I've committed to y'all before, and I stand committed to fundraising for commons improvements. At one point, I had said that I was prepared to go out and raise $40,000, $50,000 for a playground, and I was gently reminded that we hadn't done the survey yet to determine what the citizens wanted and if the playground was it. So I stand committed to that fundraising once you all can give us, the city, or myself, a direction as to what exactly we're looking for.
Mayor, I don't know if you want to mention the possibility with TML coming up this year and the potentially to get a discounted playground.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Rapley. So some of y'all know that we go to the Texas Municipal League Conference annually, and they bounce around from city to city. Part of that conference is an expo show where you have vendors bringing in everything that they could possibly sell to the city. Included in there is playground equipment, and it's not unusual for them to try to sell whatever they have, including the playground equipment, instead of having to take it back to wherever they brought it from. Trying to get ahead of that and avoid making a last minute decision, I reached out to one of the vendors that sells playground equipment and asked them if they would be interested in potentially selling it in advance of the conference, specifically so we have time to run it through council, we have time to run it through the Parks and Projects Commission and determine if it's something that you all want. We've got some preliminary ideas and we're still waiting on the pricing for those projects, but the idea would be that we could, again, buy I'll say demo with air quotes, demo playground that's essentially brand new that they're going to display downtown in the convention center. And instead of taking it back to, I think, Houston, where they're from, they would just come install it at Castle Hills shortly after the demo. So that option does exist. Obviously, with time, it's something that we would have to decide sooner rather than later because the TML conference does take place in October.
So it sounds like what we would need to do is have perhaps I don't know, a town hall of some kind to invite the public here, perhaps to our next meeting or maybe the September meeting. Well, that would be the next meeting. October would be too late, I guess. So it'd have to be the next meeting at the latest, or perhaps somewhere in between, to review the plan. And we have very detailed plans. I remember the folks from, what was it, Terra Landscape Design?
Terra Design, yeah.
Terra Design came up with a very detailed plan. I thought there were two options if memory serves. And perhaps we could just present that to the public and let them have their say. No?
Unfortunately, Mr. Joyce, we're a little bit constrained with the options that they provide because they have their flagship units that they want to display at the conferences. So I don't know if we have our pick of choice, but there are a couple that I think we can pick from, and we can show those to everybody that's involved and get group and city buy-in so that we're doing something and providing something that citizens do want.
No, I think that's a great idea, and it would be great if we could get some photographs or something of the actual equipment that is had in mind. But I was thinking broader also of the overall plan for the Commons that Terra Design did a couple of years ago, to make sure that indeed they want a shade structure, which we're talking about, and all of these other elements that are proposed, the playgrounds, the splash pad, perhaps even the sport courts up on the land behind Public Works. There's also a gentleman who would like to have some workout stations, 3 or 4 or 5 workout stations around the Commons. That's something we might work into the plan as well as an option. And you know, perhaps that could be done at our September meeting to look at the whole thing, to give you guys the direction you want and whether or not we even want a shade structure, and get buy-in on the other elements as well, and especially the playground equipment, which is available hopefully at a good price.
One thing I want to add real quick, we're in a good position because CPS currently has rebates that are applicable to the city. So aside from utilizing the one-time ARPA dollars, we could also qualify for the CPS rebate. And again, this would just continue to pay dividends for the city. Solar panels have at least like a 30-year lifespan. So over the course of that time, it's offsetting the expenses that we need to make, and it's essentially putting money back into the city that we could designate for continual common improvements.
And then Mayor, just to comment on your idea of the solar panels. So that would suggest a more conventional structure then, with columns and beams and so forth to support those solar panels. Is that what you have in mind?
Yes, sir. I mean, there's a variety of options. At this point, I've kind of taken the lead. I've had some preliminary conversations with CPS. The next step is to get a couple contractors out there to give us some quotes and give us some ideas. In talking to CPS, they did mention that there are certain contractors that have a better experience with structures like these as opposed to, say, roof mounted solar panels.
Yeah. Very well, thank you.
Actually, I don't think the solar panels necessarily have to be located directly over a playground. Matter of fact, I don't see why we couldn't use the roof of the fire department building as a possible location for solar panels if we went that way. Mr. Rapley, do we have an idea whether these figures that you've given us here are real accurate, or are these kind of guesstimates?
No, these actually came from our engineers.
I mean, do we know that we can actually go out and buy, say, a 100-foot long by 20-foot picnic shade canopy for $24,000 installed?
Yeah, I think these are pretty close to.
They're pretty good?
Yeah,
Okay.
they're a probable cost, but I would say they're pretty good as far as right on target. So,
And what's your guesstimate as to availability of funds right now?
well, again, I've submitted the proposed budget to City Council and filed it yesterday. We'll talk about it Tuesday night, and I've appropriated $100,000 right now towards common improvements. Again, that's coming from the American Rescue Fund dollars. Doesn't even impact our general fund, our basic operations. And this is the federal funding that we received in total over the last year. And then this year we've received 1.1 million. And we're going to roughly have coming into this budget about 800,000 to utilize. And so for right now in the proposed budget, I've actually carved out 100,000 towards the commons and about 34,000 to finish out the phase 3 improvements that need to be done to the fire station. And so that basically gives us, if I recall, give or take about 650,000 from that point on to do other one-time expenditures or other projects within Castle Hills with that money that again is not impacting our general fund budget.
Is there a deadline on when those funds need to be expended?
I believe it's towards the end of 2024,
Before 2024?
the end of 2024. So
And
Yeah.
right
Mr.
now-
Rapley?
go ahead, Mayor.
I'm sorry.
Chairman McCormick, do you mind if I mention a couple of things?
I didn't hear the question. Tell me again.
The mayor asked if he can jump in on a couple things, sir.
Still didn't get it.
The mayor asked if he can say a couple things on this ARPA. Yeah, go ahead, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rapley. One of the things I want to add, we utilized every penny of the previous CARES Act funding, which I believe was around $225,000, which is significant because if we don't use it, we had to return that to Bexar County, or Bexar County would subsequently return that to the federal government. So we utilized everything to provide value to the city of Castle Hills, and I fully intend on doing that with the next round for the ARPA funding. That being said, a lot of the CARES Act went to different departments, and my hope is that with the ARPA funding, we can ensure that it's being used for community improvement and something that everybody can enjoy in the community and not just one department. To answer your question, the money has to be spent by next summer, but it needs to be programmed by this summer to let the I believe it's Texas Department of Emergency Management know that we have plans and we're working towards spending it correctly.
And as the mayor mentioned, the CARES Act is the money that came in, and then it was provided us through the county, and we received $245,000 at the time, and we provided about $50,000 to assist local businesses. And then we did the first phase of improvements of the fire station, and then bought additional equipment for the fire department because they were utilizing other departments and they could not go to other fire departments because of COVID. So we ended up getting them certain equipment to help. Again, that didn't come out of the general fund. That was all those funded out of that. And then this is kind of in the same manner as, again, as the mayor said, we need to program these funds in and try to utilize every dollar that we can of it.
Well, then we need to come up with some good projects pretty quick to spend some of this money. We sure would want to give it back.
There are, so, you know, there's pretty broad categories for using the funds. I think so far we've allocated out of the 1.1 million in this current budget, we've used 297,000. And that was, again, because of COVID, a lot of cities lost revenue, whether that was through sales tax, through court revenue, through permitting. If you can make a cause that you lost revenue in your budget, there was a formula for determining how much you could take out of there and put back in. We last year figured out that we lost about 90,000 in revenue, so we were able to plug that back into the general fund. We also use that money for paying for COVID related for firefighters overtime and salaries because when they were out for COVID. And then we were also able to do the second phase of the fire department's improvements with that 297. And then of the 120,000 of the 297, we were able to go out for a bid for in order to upgrade our IT infrastructure because as Mr. Joyce knows, that's been pretty lacking over the last decade here. And so we're able to take care of that. And then the last part of that was actually buying a generator for City Hall, which will be installed hopefully in September or October of this year. So that basically is a culmination of the 297,000 that we've used of that 1.1 million. And like I said, after putting in 134,000, this proposed budget, again, it's the proposed budget. Between now and adoption in September, council can decide how to utilize those funds. But that's basically, at the end of the day, we have about 650,000 outside of that 134,000 that's programmed to utilize for projects. Now, there are categories. Again, there is revenue replacement. There's COVID related to paying employees and or public safety. There's a category for improving your parks, putting in facilities and shade structures like this to get people outdoors related past COVID. So there's some broad categories, but for the most part, a lot of cities are just pretty much buying anything that they would have purchased within their general fund, I'm hearing, but we try to stick to what we can utilize the funds for. But like the mayor said, we want to make sure that we have them programmed in and let TDM know that we are spending the money through the 650 through 2024. Go ahead, Mr. Joyce.
So do I understand that to mean that there's $650,000 that we still have to program?
So right now there was, so basically if I take it back before the proposed budget last night, there was about 810,000. So I put in 100,000 into park improvements, commons, and then 34,000 to finish out the renovations at the fire station facility, like we talked about during the budget process. So that right there, out of the proposal, it was about 650, somewhere around that mark, to be able for council to program in. And my actual goal was to, one of our budget workshops is to talk about ARPA, to get a consensus from council in a upcoming council workshop of what they want to use the rest of that money for. I didn't want to arbitrarily put in too much and say that, myself as city manager, I'm going to put in 300,000 for common improvements, because my understanding through attending these parks and projects meetings over the last, 2 or 3 years, my understanding is, and what I've heard was getting improvements done to the commons, like a playground, shade structure, and other amenities. And I don't know if that's changed, but that's kind of what I hear on a day-to-day about getting more and more amenities to the commons. So, Mayor, anything else?
I think, aren't we in a place where we're looking at trying to set up a pretty quick town hall to discuss this, give the public an opportunity to come in and talk about it? And it looks to me like this ought to be done pretty quickly so that we can make a decision and recommend it to the city council. So I'd suggest maybe by next meeting time.
Mhm.
Is that reasonable? I guess I'll entertain a motion to that effect.
Sir, I think that, do you have a question?
Sorry, I just had a question about the placement in this sketch. If there was a benefit or what the idea was for that back left corner.
I'm not sure. I think, again, this is just a preliminary rendering. It could be placed anywhere. I think it was an idea to show that where a shade structure could go and the length and width from that standpoint. In my opinion, I actually can see it move further up to the corner there as you come into the parking lot there at the cross from because I think it was always intended for the playground to go right there in that corner as you come across the street from the elementary. But of course, we're probably going to have some type of, shade structure over the playground itself from that standpoint. But I think this is just showing a rendering where it could go. My idea would be actually closer up to the corner there with the shade structure.
Towards the street, you mean?
Yeah, because if you think about it, when we have concerts right there.
Yeah.
And then for the most part, when we have Fiesta, we have the stage there, and then most of those booths in the middle. I think it would be more ideal to have a shade structure down by the corner to where you can maximize some of those booths and they're shaded. And then of course, people just get general relief to be able to stand there under the shade and or put a bench or two maybe so people can sit down. Because I even remember this last Fiesta being pretty hot. But I think obviously working with Bernard and Judy and the Castle Hills, the CHCO, to figure out some of this placement of ideas, because they're the ones that are going to have some input about where typically the booths go as well.
Mr. Rapley, you and I had spoken previously about a couple of other items that we were looking to do to make better use of the property we have available. The space directly behind Public Works Building, we talked about at one time setting up for a possible basketball court or maybe pickleball or something like that. Would it be appropriate to consider paving a piece of that with some of this money? So that we put in a basketball court, perhaps a pickleball court? I don't know.
I think most definitely. I mean, again, I think that was sort of phase two. And what I'll do, I had a note to send out to everyone, the sort of the master plan that was done so everyone can see. I'll send that out. I'll try to get, I'm here for a while after this meeting.
As far as I know, the master plan is not considering that at the moment. There's no plan, nothing in the master plan to consider how to use that space that I'm aware of.
No, there is.
No, there
Still.
is on a phase two. It does show, there's a couple ideas for phase two showing either a garden and or equipment related to what I think the resident requested for, what is it called, Mr. Joyce? The
The exercise equipment.
exercise equipment
Yeah.
and or putting some type of pickleball or basketball court or something like that. There also shows a trail that connects the commons to that.
Yeah, I
lot.
knew we had talked about that. You and I spoke about that drainage ditch in the back as being a possible location for a linear park. And it would solve two problems. One of them is the problem of our drain water passing through that ditch is eroding the fences behind us. And technically, I suspect we may be liable for that. And if we could do some landscaping and maybe drainage contouring or rock or concrete,
Yeah.
that back wall of that ditch, that would contribute to solving that problem as well as to prepare that for a walkway to the back lot for the additional playground area.
And again, I think that the phase two had a couple ideas of what could be put there, but to answer your question, as far as funding, I mean, we're talking about, yes, there's going to be some 600,000, and don't forget, we have 300 some thousand left in the seed that would also be able to do this. But I know that there's an idea to try to use some of that maybe to improve this facility that we're in right now as well.
Any idea what it would cost us to pave a section of that back lot to be used for alternatively either basketball or pickleball or squash or whatever we can
Well,
use it for?
I think that the consultants had some ideas on cost, but I always thought they were a little inflated from that standpoint. And so until we kind of go out for bid and working a little bit closer with our engineers on that cost, we could probably get that price down. But to say no, I don't know exactly. But between now and the next meeting, we could probably get a better price on some of those things.
Okay, can we make that part of our town hall? What do you think, Mr. Joyce?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And just to clarify, Skip, it is part of the comprehensive plan. And actually, I would invite everybody to look at it. It's on one of those sheets. I think one of the latter sheets. Yeah, there it is. Maddie's got it.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Well, it's figured as part of the comprehensive plan. But we do need to have the public input for sure. So yeah, I would, boy, time is tight, you know,
Real close to the deadline for making budget decisions.
yeah. And if we want to invite the folks to come here to review all of this, we need time to get that word out. Now, we probably, I would ask Mr. Rapp, we probably want to do a postcard because this is really important. That's another cost, $600 or $700, but just so everybody knows that we're going to meet on that Saturday and review all of these different things, and we need their input. So, yeah.
Saturday, the 1st of September.
Is that Labor Day weekend?
Yes.
That's Labor Day weekend, sure. But we've got a zoning meeting set for the 30th. I don't know, that's not a Saturday, is it?
No. We have it Tuesday night, August 30th. That's zoning, but I would say we wouldn't get a very good turnout on Labor Day,
No.
even myself. Just saying,
Let's see.
stay right off. So
I think we've got a zoning meeting set for the 30th. That's a Tuesday. And Wednesday, the 31st. In the evening.
Sure. Yeah, that's before the big holiday. Yeah, I think that could work. An evening would be good, I think, probably even preferable to a Saturday morning. I don't know. What do y'all think? Wednesday night be okay? Yeah, I don't know that it conflicts with anything. Anything on the city's calendar, Ryan, that the 31st would conflict with, to your knowledge?
I'm trying to think, not our budget workshops. I don't think so right now. Our budget workshops are the 16th and 23rd. And then we don't meet again. The reason why we moved zoning to the 30th is because we have the special meeting, budget hearing on September 6th. That's why there was a conflict.
Right.
Then I guess we can entertain a motion to schedule a town hall for the 31st in the evening to include the shade canopy, possible paving, and possible treatment of the drainage ditch. And anything else we should include in that?
I think just a general question that Mr. Rapley asked, what do the citizens want in the Commons? Just
I'm sorry,
put-
what does the city want?
What do the citizens want in the Commons? Put this plan up there, I guess the two alternatives, and say, okay, folks, what do you think? You know, these are the elements that are in there that the designers have thought about.
Okay,
Here's phase one, here's phase two. What do y'all think?
Traditionally, how many people come to the town halls?
3 or 4. We don't get a lot of participation. We've had several attempts at town halls on Saturday morning. And if we have half a dozen people show up, that's a wonder.
The only big turnout we had was when the council was considering the development for the apartments on a Saturday, a big turnout. And
Nevertheless, I think we're obligated to give the public an opportunity
For sure.
and to try to let them know about it, and let them come and express their thoughts if they have any. So I guess we're still looking at that motion. If somebody wants to make a motion and a second, we'll have to make a decision.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to have that town hall on August 31st in the evening.
I second.
Tell me again. Did you make a motion?
Might make a
Okay.
motion, yeah.
Then we need a second.
I second.
Okay. Mr. Doughton and Ms. Dillon. Motion and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, unanimous.
I think part of the reason that this would probably be helpful again, because council's not adopting the budget till September 14th. So this will kind of give them an idea of if this is on the right track or not with potential
Yeah.
funding for the Commons.
Do you have the
You're right, and
funds, Mr. Rapley, to send out a notification postcard?
Yes, sir.
Good. And I think that's probably an essential to be able to do this on the 31st.
Mr. Joyce? I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Jim.
that's a good plan, I think, because we can meet between the council meeting on the 14th and the August 31st one to sort of clarify what's in the proposal and hopefully come up with a price to be ready to present to council. So we can approve it ourselves, or you guys can, I'm an observer. But I mean, it can be approved here and then presented to council as an
Well,
approved.
from a timeline perspective, you could probably have the town hall meet on Saturday, September 10th, I believe, is a Saturday.
Uh-huh.
And then the regular council meeting on the 14th for September is when we will be adopting the budget.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What time would we do the town hall meeting in the evening, like 6, 7? Doesn't matter.
Probably maybe,
Will that get us done in time to meet the budgeting requirement?
most of our meetings are either 6:30 or 7, but we can probably have a 6:30 meeting. Yes, sir. Sorry. Mr. McCormick, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm not hearing you.
No, you asked me a question, sir?
Yes, does that give us time to meet the budgeting requirements for the information to get into our budget?
Yes, because we're adopting the budget on the 14th of September.
Okay, and if we have a meeting on the 10th of September, that won't be too short?
No, sir. That'll give council what they need to make any potential recommendations, especially related to that line item for the funding.
Do we need to have a meeting before that, do you think? Jack, what do you think?
I would say, let's see what happens on the 31st.
Okay,
And if there's a need, if it blows up and there's a need to regroup and start again, well, then we'll consider another meeting. But I'm
okay.
thinking it's going to be well received. I mean, based on the comments we've heard on the comprehensive plan, folks want to see improvements.
Yeah, we've been talking about this for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So this is not a new deal for us.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be controversial. So I think, if we get some tweaks, that's fine. And we can take care of that in the drawings and mention it to council, and Ryan can adjust the budget. I
So-
don't see the need for it, Skip, unless it blows up, which hopefully wouldn't happen.
Okay.
So what exactly are we presenting at the town hall? All the options, all the different kinds of shade structures, the placements? Do we need to kind of narrow that down, or?
As I understood Jack's comment, what he wanted to do was to put up our proposal, whatever it is, on August 31st with these 2 or 3 things that we've added together and estimated costs. And we've got a couple of charts back there that show some other options, and then get the public to give us their thoughts on it, if they have any. And then we'll make a final decision on the 10th of September. And when we have another meeting, we'll pass that back to Mr. Rapley to present to the city council.
I think what those of us who have been here for some time, you guys who are newer, is an explanation of what that whole design is. Because we've been kind of talking about, there it is and here it is, but we just need to sit down with y'all and just sort of run through and explain to you what the designers had in mind.
Yeah, we had.
Very nice plan. There were 2 different playgrounds, as memory served, based on ages, a lesser age and an older age. Then there was the splash pad, which, I'd love to see that. I think I'd go in it myself. But, and then there were shade structures, there were gathering structures, and of course the path, but Mr. Harada's already done the path.
We started off asking for a basic input and wound up with $1 million proposal from somebody who wanted to sell us a big package. So we had a whole range of options, and we spent hours and hours listening to presentations from these vendors. And we never did really get to a place where we could make a decision. And then we had a 7-month break where we had no meetings.
But anyway, we have a really nice plan. And
I will send that plan out to everyone so you could see the full plan. And again, it has phase 1, phase 2. And I think, as Mr. McCormick referenced, the first thing they said was, hey, you can do this, this, and this. And the first thing we did was, I don't know if you remember how the trails looked before, but they recommended a 6-foot wide concrete. So that was the first thing we could do within our budget to say, here's how we're going to change the commons. And that was the first thing we did. But I think, to answer your question, we can have and show at the town hall meeting the entire plan, but obviously let folks know that, what we're trying to do is see if we can get X and Y as a part of the plan right now. And then as we come further down with the project, that we can ask and have future town meetings for other amenities for the commons. Is that correct?
yeah, I think that's a good idea. And if you'll be good enough to send it out to the group, Ryan, maybe what I can do, and I guess we have to be careful of the Open Meetings Act, I don't know, but maybe what I can do is just provide an explanation for each of the elements that's in there from it's 2 years ago now, but I think I have a fairly good recollection of what the designers had in mind.
I think, sir, if you have that, send it to me. I can send it out to everyone.
Okay. That would- That
Because
would
I,
solve the open
yeah.
meetings thing. Okay, thank you. I will do that.
Okay. Did we have a vote on the town? hall? We didn't we? Yes.
Mayor, did you have anything else? Not sure. Mayor?
No, sir, I didn't. Thank you so much for putting so much thought into everything.
Okay, are we done with this subject? Again? Be pretty thoroughly. Okay. Okay, now we have discussion of possible commission task for the near future. Mr. Joyce.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I came across this past week as I was sort of organizing. I came across this past week as I was organizing my office, which I need to do once every 10 years, whether it needs it or not. But anyway, Ms. Hopke, the previous president of the commission, had put together a presentation for city council back in September of 2020. So I thought I'd just sort of review Ms. Hopke's initiatives at the time and kind of, you know, we can talk about them, see if that's something, a lot of it's already being done as part of the comprehensive plan. But anyway, we can go through them and see if you all think it's anything worth looking into. First was the parks plan and inventory. I think that's pretty well been complete. And we probably, do you all have a copy of the parks inventory? Did we give that to you? Okay. Could I ask Mr. Rapley to include that, please, in when you send a note to the folks? Thank you. The parks inventory. Yeah. Okay, the second initiative was the Castle Hills and Jackson Keller Elementary Schools, which Mr. Udemeyer worked on. And my understanding was that he came to an agreement with NEISD to use their playgrounds in the evenings and the weekends. So that's for Castle Hills Elementary. I think they were still working on Jackson Keller Elementary. I don't think they resolved that.
Yeah,
So
I think there was if you recall, they were able to get funding for the signage that's there and everything.
Okay,
And I think that's what they were still working on, trying to get funding for the signage there for the same purpose to use. And just for general comment purposes, I guess, someone had asked or put something on Facebook about times, and there's never been really times that just, I think you can use it after school at a certain point. You can use it on the weekends. And it should be accessible. I've never really had any problems since we started this agreement with NISD to use the school that there's been any problems. But if there is, we can always, again, and through Bernard, reach out to the principal to find out if there's any complications with it. But for the most part, I think it's even with school in, you can use it later in the day and on the weekends, dawn to dusk or something. So
okay. It might not be a bad idea to ask Bernard to maybe touch base with his contact at NEISD to see where that stands. It's probably been sitting dormant for a long time now.
Mr. Joyce, as I recall, the Castle Hills Elementary School had exercise stations installed around their track. And I'm not sure whether that was a plan or whether it actually came to fruition. So that was one of the items that you raised, possibly for us in the Commons. If it's right across the street, maybe we don't need to spend that money on the Commons. Just a thought.
Good thought. Thank you. Okay. The next initiative then was signs and branding. And I know that we've got the street signs figured out. They're going up a little at a time. And I noticed on the website that there does seem to be a logo. Brian, do you know if the branding is completed, or is that something we need?
yeah,
to
well, the website is complete. I mean, we launched a brand new website.
Right.
But, you know, I think when we started this process was trying to figure out the branding perspective of whether that's a logo or image. And I think part of that was improving the seal for the city, which we pretty much used Universal for everything now moving forward. We're probably, I think, I don't have the number, but we're only gonna have to do a phase 3 of the street signs, I think, to finish that out. And I've put in some money again in the budget next year to finish that out. And those street signs have been going up in conjunction with wherever we're doing new streets. So we incorporate the line item cost for the new streets, the new signs within the street that we're doing. So a few more signs will go up as part of the streets that we're finishing up over the next 4, 5, 6 months. And then I think next year with the new budget, that'll completely close out all new street signs in Castle Hills. But yes, so the branding, I think, if you look at the new website, that's the image that we're using as well. And
Yeah, that's very
Scott,
nice.
Scott, our intern, has done a lot of work to get that launched in conjunction between myself and Scott, our intern, and Mr. Isbrand spent a lot of time on working with Civic Plus, who launched the new website about a month ago. And if you look at the new website, there's images of the city that Scott has gone out and taken pictures. And he'll be able to routinely go out and take pictures and put in, I think, 4 or 5 pictures in the main banner that scrolls now moving forward from that standpoint. So
Good.
but I think that was part of it. The last part, I think, regarding branding and image was to somehow get a gateway sign into Castle Hills. And in the proposed budget, I've layered in about 5,000, I believe, to improving not only improving the monuments, because our next one after Cass Hills was to improve Travertine, the monument there, but also find a way and get money. Well, I put the funds in right now, and this is in the proposed, but to find a place where we could put in a gateway sign, you know, the Castle Hills when you come in, because I think that was the last part of the branding and imaging.
Okay. So there's not a whole lot that the committee needs to get involved with in on that issue.
No, I think we're pretty much done.
Okay, very good.
We have signs at all of the threshold.
I'm sorry, sir, say that again.
Do we have signs, city signs located at all of the thresholds? Like
Yeah,
at Lock Hill and Northwest Military and Blanco and Jackson Killer?
Yeah, that's what I was referencing, the gateway signs or the monuments.
Yeah,
So I put in some money in the proposed budget to see if we could start moving forward with some of those, particularly maybe at 1 or 2 locations.
is there anything we need to do to get that recommendation before council?
No, I think at some point we'll probably bring some renderings and some ideas to this group and have y'all recommend and then move that forward next year once the budget is adopted. But I think whatever we decide as a gateway or monument would come through the parks here and project, and then would eventually go to council to fund the project.
Do we want to include that in our town hall meeting and bring it to council so that it gets in early enough to be included in this budget?
No, I don't think there's a significant timeline associated with that. I'm just carving in funds in the line item so we can move forward with that sometime next year.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, there's a couple more. The other initiative was linear parks, and that's been incorporated as part of the master comprehensive plan study. So that's being taken care of. Pedestrian and bike lanes, that's all taken care of. And well, I guess we're working on this. This last initiative is a vision for the commons, and so that's what we're working on. And so I don't know. It looks like there really isn't a whole lot in here. It's all either taken care of or underway. So very good. I am done with that.
All
item.
done? Okay. Then no action on that. This is a member's opportunity to make announcements. Any announcements? Yes, sir. Mr. Joyce.
I'd just like to mention that we have our next Castle Hills Business Association meeting scheduled for August 24th, which is a Wednesday evening. If you guys, you're certainly welcome to attend. It's going to be at Thai Topaz. It's going to start at 5:30 in the evening. We have a speaker, Councilman May got a speaker, an attorney, a local attorney who's going to speak on avoiding litigation and for businesses, avoiding pitfalls and things. What can businesses get in trouble with and how to avoid them? So it should be an interesting discussion. So that's August 24th, Wednesday evening at 5:30, if you're interested. Thank you. That'll be at Thai Topaz,
Where?
Thai Topaz on Northwest Military, the restaurant, Thai Topaz.
Oh, yeah. Next item is date and time of the next meeting. As I understand it, we talked about September the 10th. That's not a bad meeting date for our next meeting, and it's also the time that we plan to talk about the budget items that need to be approved and recommended to city council. I guess we'll entertain a motion to set the next meeting for September 10th, and that is a Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, 10 a.m. We'll entertain a motion to that effect. Ms. Martinez, second, anybody? And Mr. Dillon? All right, everybody in favor, raise your hand. Good. All approved. And I believe that's it. We'll entertain a motion to adjourn unless somebody has some other business.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Need a second? Seconded by Ms. Dillon. Okay,
That's usually not a
adjourned.
controversial motion. I'm sorry.
there?
It's usually not a controversial motion.
No. All in favor? Aye, good. We're adjourned.